Good morning, everyone. We'll be getting started in the next minute. We're just giving people a little bit more time to join. All right. Hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's training, Getting Started, Award Clearance for New York City Discretionary Funding. This is the 7th in a series of passport vendor trainings. Please note that we will be covering quite a bit of information today. However, this webinar will be recorded and uploaded to our Learning to Use Passport webpage. My name is Gabby, and I'm one of today's presenters from the Learning and Development team here at MOCS, the Mayor's Office of Contract Services. As MOCS's AmeriCorps Vista member, I work collaboratively across the agency to provide assistance to community-based organizations through managing the City Council Discretionary Award funding portfolio. I am joined by my colleagues at MOCS who will be answering questions in the chat. So today we'll begin by talking about MOCS and its purpose, and we'll also share a bit of background on discretionary awards and the clearance process that takes place before registration can occur. Then we'll talk about the procedural requirements for discretionary awards and how to complete them to receive full clearance. Finally, we'll review the MOCS websites and the resources you can find there. But first, a little bit about us. The Mayor's Office of Contract Services, also known as MOCS, leads procurement for New York City. We serve as an oversight and service agency dedicated to making it easier to do business with the city. To learn more about MOCS, the city's fiscal spending on procurement, and the procurement process overall, you can watch the recording of our Finding Opportunities webinar, which is posted on our website, nyc.gov/passport. So I'm sure most of you know this already, but let's quickly take some time to review what discretionary funding is. What is discretionary funding? Discretionary funding is a monetary award given by the New York City Council to meet local needs and fill gaps in city agency services. This appropriated sum of money is allocated from the city's expense budget in accordance with the Procurement Policy Board rules. Unlike competitively awarded agency contracts, discretionary funding contracts are awarded for a single fiscal year. There are several types of discretionary funding used by the City Council, each serving different purposes. Member local initiatives, City Council local initiatives, and citywide initiatives are all examples of types of discretionary funding. Member local initiatives are when each member of the council receives an annual amount to meet local needs in the member's district, known as local initiatives. City Council local initiatives, often referred to as the Speaker's List, is funding allocated directly from the Speaker or members that request that the Speaker fund an organization whose scope of services exceeds their individual ability to fund, or which serves a larger geographical area. Citywide initiatives are when the Council may also initiate programs for addressing community needs that it feels are lacking by existing agency programming, to extend the reach of agency programs to underserved communities or populations. In most cases, the City Council will provide funding to specific not-for-profit providers. So who is eligible for discretionary funding? Discretionary funding is allocated only to nonprofit, community-based social service providers. Eligibility criteria include an organization being incorporated as a non-for-profit, having a current registration with the New York State Attorney General's Charities Bureau, unless if you are exempt, and having a valid Federal Employer Identification Number, or an EIN. And finally, what are the benefits of applying for discretionary funding? These awards are non-competitive, meaning there is no limit on the amount of organizations that may apply and receive funding. Additionally, unlike competitive funding, discretionary awards are available every fiscal year. Last, but certainly not least, the minimum funding amount a member can designate is currently $5,000. However, do keep in mind when applying that the amount requested should be based on the program or service being provided. Before we jump into the procedural requirements for award clearance, let's briefly review the clearance timeline for discretionary awards. First, nonprofit organizations that wish to receive discretionary funding must first submit a City Council discretionary funding application. The application is generally available in January for 6 weeks only. The City Council's website provides information on the application and submission schedule. Please visit council.nyc.gov/budget for more information on this. Next, the City Council will review the applications they have received and go through an extensive internal vetting process. This usually takes up to 3 to 4 months. Once the City Council clearance process has concluded, Schedule C is typically released in June. This is a formal report outlining all City Council initiatives and their monetary designations. While this is all occurring, MOCS will be consistently checking for completion of the procedural requirements. Upon MOCS review and approval, contracting agencies will be able to begin working with discretionary providers on registering their contracts. Now, let's get into the main event, procedural requirements for award clearance. Please note that these requirements do not need to be completed prior to applying for discretionary awards via a City Council application. However, it is most ideal to complete these between the time you submit your City Council application and Schedule C to avoid delays in registration and invoicing. The key is to complete these prior to designation of any awards so that you have a better chance of receiving an award and so that the process can move forward as quickly and efficiently as possible upon award designation. So what are the procedural requirements for MOCS clearance? It is important to note that City Council clearance is in fact considered a procedural requirement. If any of your awards are currently pending City Council clearance, please reach out to the City Council Discretionary Unit at the email listed below at discretionary@council.nyc.gov. Today, we will be discussing the two more technical procedural requirements that will be reviewed by MOCS: submitting an HHS prequalification application and completing the capacity building training e-course. The fourth and final procedural requirement is creating a passport account. However, since most, if not all, of our attendees today currently have passport accounts, we will not be going over the details of how to request a passport vendor account in this webinar. However, for more guidance on requesting a passport account, we encourage you to go to our Getting Started page, which can be accessed on nyc.gov/passport. Once you're on nyc.gov/passport, click on the Getting Started Doing Business with NYC tab in the navigation menu on the left-hand side of your screen. There, you'll find many comprehensive resources to choose from. This also includes the Becoming a New York City Vendor link, which will bring you to a section that offers detailed instructions to help you create a passport account. Before we talk about the HHS prequalification application, let's discuss the importance of user contact roles and what is required when completing the application in Passport. To complete the HHS PQL application, you'll need to set up contacts in your vendor profile with the proper user role. The relevant roles are as follows: Vendor Admin, Vendor Procurement Level 2, and Vendor Procurement Level 1. The vendor admin can add contacts and provision user roles. They also can complete, sign, and submit the HHS prequalification application for review by MOCS. The contact who requested the organization's passport vendor account is automatically given the vendor admin role. The Vendor Procurement Level 2 role can complete, sign, and submit the application for review by MOCS. This is similar to the vendor admin role. The Vendor Procurement Level 1 role can complete an application but cannot sign or submit the application for review by MOCS. To set up contacts with the proper user role in Passport, click on the Profile button in the top navigation menu of your Passport vendor account homepage. Then, click on Vendor Profile from the drop-down menu. Once you are in your vendor profile, click the Contacts tab on the left side of the screen. This will take you to the Contacts tab of your vendor profile. Once in the Contacts tab of your vendor profile, scroll down to the Vendor Contacts Information section where the vendor team is listed. Confirm each contact in the vendor team has the appropriate role assigned for the work they will be handling in Passport. You should verify that the individuals working on the HHS prequalification application have Procurement Level 1 or Level 2 or the vendor admin role. You should also confirm that your colleagues have registered an NYC.ID, pronounced NICE ID, to match the email associated with their contact in Passport. To add a new role to an existing contact, the contact making the change must have the vendor admin role. The vendor admin would click the Profile drop-down and choose the additional role, such as Vendor Procurement Level 2, then click the Save and Refresh button at the top of the page. To add a new contact, the user making the change again must have the vendor admin role. The vendor admin would click the Add a New Contact button and fill out the form ensuring required fields are complete. After completing the contact info here, you can go ahead and click the Save and Close button at the top. Here are a few best practices and reminders when it comes to adding contacts and assigning roles. The vendor admin is the only contact that may add and edit user roles. To complete, sign, and submit the HHS prequalification application, your vendor profile must have at least one contact with the vendor admin or vendor procurement level 2 role. Remember, vendor procurement level 1 users cannot sign or submit the application for MOCS review. Your colleagues must have a registered NICE ID to match the email associated with their contact in Passport. They must also log into Passport to activate their account. Now that we have the necessary user roles, let's talk about the HHS prequalification application itself. So what is HHS prequalification, or PQL? The HHS prequalification application enables providers to demonstrate basic business readiness and allows the city to collect and vet providers' business information. Ultimately, the HHS PQL has streamlined procurement for health and human services in New York City. To be pre-qualified, MOCS must review and approve your PQL application. It is very important to note that the HHS PQL is in Passport, not HHS Accelerator. Vendors will be asked to complete a brief questionnaire and submit documentation relating to their organization. So who should become pre-qualified? There are two scenarios. Any vendor who wishes to be eligible to respond to a Human Services RFX. An RFX is a catch-all term that stands for Request for X. X can be a placeholder for anything such as RFP, Request for Proposal, RFI, Request for Information, and so on. Simply put, think of an RFX as an invitation or solicitation. If you are a nonprofit who has applied for a discretionary funding award, that discretionary award must go through the award clearance process, which includes HHS prequalification. So how does getting prequalified benefit vendors? Prequalification enables you to respond to any HHS RFX released through Passport. We will be getting into the details of the application in the next slides. If you are a nonprofit organization, you will want to prepare your documents in an electronic format to have them ready to upload with your application. This list is typical for most nonprofits to submit as part of their HHS PQL application and will help you get a sense of what you'll need to pre-qualify. Within the questionnaire tab of the application, you might be asked to upload the following: a certificate of incorporation or equivalent. If there is an amendment, please ensure that this is included. The corporate bylaws for your organization, a board of directors list, an IRS letter of determination or 501c3, and both the conflict of interest and whistleblower policies for your organization's policies, which should be in an electronic format. The MOCS review team has seen all manner of submissions, including the MOCS conflict of interest disclosure and compliance certification submitted as part of PQL applications, which is not acceptable. You should submit your own organization's policy, or your application will be returned to you to make revisions and resubmit for another round of review. You will be submitting your annual charities filings within the Documents tab of the application, as seen on the screen here. These should be submitted as one electronic file, which would include the documents or document you specified in the questionnaire based on your revenue range. You can determine which documents you need to submit for this using this chart that breaks it down by revenue range per nonprofit organizational size. This can be located in the HHS Prequalification User Manual on our Learning to Use Passport webpage. Please note that when inputting the validity period associated with the financial documents you intend to submit, the begin date should be the HHS PQL submission date, aka the date you are submitting your HHS prequalification application. Additionally, the expiration date should be the extended due date of your annual filing cycle for the current calendar year if you are up to date with your filing. After completing the questionnaire and document tabs, you will sign and submit your completed application to MOCS for a review. So what happens after you submit your pre-qualification application to MOCS? MOCS will review your application in detail. You will be updated via email to learn whether your application has been approved or if revisions are needed. It is your responsibility to keep an eye out for an email notification so you will know as soon as possible whether 1. Your application has been approved and you have completed the HHS prequalification requirement, or 2. If it has been returned to you. The email you receive will contain notes and instruction from the reviewer on what changes are needed to resubmit your application for review and approval. If you need any clarification, you can receive assistance quickly by contacting the person listed in the notification. For either of these scenarios, it is critical to keep an eye out for passport emails. Maintaining your pre-qualification is very important. Pre-qualification lasts for 3 years unless a required document expires first. Many nonprofits must submit their annual filings documentation to maintain their approved HHS pre-qualification status. To renew, simply update your application with the new documentation and submit it to MOCS for review. Here are a few best practices and reminders when it comes to completing the HHS pre-qualification application. The HHS pre-qualification application is in Passport, not HHS Accelerator. Remember to upload policy documents related to your organization, not MOCS's. And finally, remember to monitor your PQL status. You'll receive a system notification before it's going to expire. You can also check your HHS PQL status within Passport yourself. Now, on to the fourth and final procedural requirement, the capacity building training. So what is the capacity building training? The capacity building training is an online e-course available at all times. In addition to providing an overview of the discretionary award process, the training covers topics such as legal compliance, financial management, and board governance, as you can see on the left-hand side of the screen here. So how does the capacity building training work? Please note that once you register for the training, you have 30 days to complete it. The amount of time you have left to complete the training can be found in the Enrolled tab of your account profile. At the far right of the screen, you'll see a column labeled Enrolled, and under it, Last Visited/Left. On your screen is an example showing a user with 24 days remaining to complete the capacity building training. The training itself is self-paced and typically takes 90 minutes to complete, but you do not have to complete it in one sitting. You may start and stop the training at any time during the 30-day period. However, you must complete all sections to receive your training certificate. Additionally, please note that this training is interactive, and therefore there will be times where you will need to click on certain parts of the content to learn and read more. This will involve scrolling all the way down to ensure you have viewed all of the content in each module. So who should take the capacity building training? A member of your organization's board or executive staff is required to complete the capacity building training. Please note that the certificate obtained after completing the training is only valid for 3 years and flows with the specific individual that completed the course. Although certain members of your organization are required to take it, all nonprofit staff can very much benefit from this training. We encourage anyone who has the time and availability within your organization to take it and gain a deeper knowledge of capacity building best practices in the nonprofit sector. Here are a few best practices and reminders when it comes to completing the capacity building training. The capacity building training must be completed by a member of your organization's board or executive staff. Capacity building training certificates are issued to the individuals who complete the training, not organizations. Certificates are also valid for 3 years after the date of completion. Finally, as previously mentioned, please make sure to click on all parts of each module when completing it. This will allow you to move on to the next part of the training and will ensure that your progress is saved and updated accordingly. To access the capacity building training, please go to nyc.gov/tracker. Once there, scroll down to the Complete Capacity Building Training section. Within this section, you'll find information to help you enroll. This includes the registration code, the registration link, and a step-by-step guide. And now I'll share with you some other resources relevant to the topics we've discussed today. The two major websites you can use to get information about MOCS and Passport are the MOCS help page and the Passport page. These two pages will allow you to access everything you need regarding Passport, especially the resources that we have reviewed today. The MOCS help page, nyc.gov/mocshelp, is meant to assist users with MOCS applications. This help page lists all the logins to the applications we support, Passport and HHS Accelerator, as well as FAQs, frequently asked questions, and learning materials. The MOCS Help page also has resources for nonprofits on the NYC Nonprofits page, which includes information about discretionary funding and the Indirect Cost Rate Initiative. At the bottom of the MOCS Help page, you will also find the link to reach out to our MOCS service desk. The next resource is our Learning to Use Passport page, and it can be found by going to nyc.gov/passport, then clicking on the Learning to Use Passport link on the left-hand navigation menu. On the Learning to Use Passport page, you'll find user manuals, quick guides, and videos to help walk you through how to use Passport. These are organized by topic and module. The recording for this webinar will be posted on the top of the page in the Getting Started Webinar Series Recordings section. In this same section, please refer to the video of our webinar recording, Submitting the HHS PQL Application. This recorded webinar goes over in detail how to submit the pre-qualification application in Passport and includes a system demonstration submitting the application. Other resources that are relevant to the topics we have covered today are highlighted in the Finding and Responding to RFX Solicitations section. There, you will find our step-by-step user manual to help you complete and manage your HHS pre-qualification application. I strongly recommend using this guide. If you have that open as you go through the steps of the application, it will make pre-qualification that much easier for you. And finally, in the City Council Discretionary Award Contracting section, you will find more resources related to the discretionary process and the procedural requirements we discussed today. This includes a guide on discretionary award clearance. Finally, to search the status of all City Council discretionary awards from the past 3 fiscal years, please visit the Discretionary Award Tracker at nyc.gov/tracker. This resource is updated periodically, approximately every 6 to 8 weeks, as new cleared lists and transparency resolutions are released by the City Council. Please refer to the Data as of date to see when the last update occurred. If you scroll down to the bottom of this webpage, you will be able to view each of the statuses reflected in the award tracker and what they mean. I also highly recommend using this resource as you work on completing the procedural requirements for discretionary award clearance. Before we sign off, we'd like you to complete our survey within the next 24 hours. We'd love to hear your feedback, as this will allow us to improve future webinars and develop resources to help you do business with the city. The link to the survey is posted within the chat and will also be emailed to you. Thank you all for your time today. I really appreciate you all attending, and good luck to you. Please remember to fill out the survey so that we can make our events and webinars that much more relevant to you. And I hope you all have a good day. Take care. Thank you so much.